Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Monday, August 19th, 2019. Happy Monday to you. We have a lot to talk about, despite the fact that, as you have probably been reading on social media and message boards, etc., and seen your local or national meteorologist on television or webcast or YouTube video, whatever the case may be, you've seen it and you've heard people talking about how dead things are and how dead things are likely to be going forward. And almost all of that is based on computer modeling going forward. And that's all well and good, but sometimes if you just stare at your computer all day and you try to see what's going on and you forget to look out the window, which for me it's over there to my left, and this is all just metaphorically speaking, of course, you don't see the weather that's actually coming at you. Things that are important like the calendar, and climatology also have to be taken into consideration. All of this relevant as part of today's update. So let's get on with it. First, a stop at the National Hurricane Center, virtually speaking anyway, on the website. In the Atlantic Invest area, 97L. No big deal. Don't even worry about this at the moment, or any moment. In the Eastern Pacific, a couple of areas to watch here. I'll go over these in more detail in just a moment, because both of these could have impacts going down the road or down the track or the ocean path, whatever you want to call it, over the next several days. And we can look at this on a different perspective from the University of Wisconsin site. Wisconsin, great for cows, great for cheese, and satellite perspectives of the tropics. It's awesome. And so here you have 97E. Remember, the 90 through 99 is the number they designate areas of investigation with. And the E in this case is for Eastern Pacific. So we have 95E, 97E. We had a 96E, but it, poofed out. And in the Atlantic we have 97L. So all of the activity right now around the globe is in the Western Hemisphere, for what it's worth. So there you go. All right, so going back to this, this is 95E, Invest Area 95E, this is 97E, and if we go down and look at the 5-day graphical outlook version of this, you see that both of these areas, very high probability of developing as we have seen this upward motion, more favorability area moving through. Part of it is the Madden-Julian oscillation, a wide scale or broader scale upward motion. Sorry about the microphone bump. The atmosphere needs lift, and if you're pushing down, you can't get cloud formation. And that is starting to relent more and more as we go forward. Part of it's climatology, that it's the time of year we are supposed to see tropical activity get going in the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic Basin. It's the time of year that we see that ramp up, and there you go. So we're seeing it starting to come to fruition there in the Pacific, and eventually I think it's going to spill into the Atlantic. So that's a good way to identify the players on the field, so to speak. All right, a couple of important things to look at. The upper ocean heat content in the Atlantic Basin is right where it should be in terms of favorability. There is plenty of energy available. This is dated on the 19th. It's usually just a little bit of a lag, but look over here through the deep tropics all the way over to the Western Atlantic Basin, Caribbean. Oh boy, especially the Caribbean. But look here, just north of Cuba, the white. It's not white hot. There's no such thing as that, but it is warm, very, very warm. This is all about the energy in the upper ocean heat content, the upper ocean portion of the ocean, not just at the surface. We talk about surface temperatures a lot. Those are important, but when you get a hurricane, a tropical system coming along and it churns up the water, wherever it tracks, and I'm just drawing lines here just to show you, as they come along, they churn up the water, and if it's just churning up more warm water, then they are able to really feed back and grow. But if they churn up colder water because only the surface layer is warm, around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, then it's harder for them to strengthen. And so we look at this as on the scale over here, and there's a lot of physics involved. I just think of it as, wow, top of the scale means very high upper ocean heat content. Anything that you see registering on the scale, however, is sufficient upper ocean heat content to get intense hurricanes, category 3 or higher, honestly. And that doesn't mean you can't get a Cat 3 hurricane out here somewhere or up in the subtropics or whatever. But when you have this high ocean heat content like we see off the southeast coast, definitely in the Caribbean and definitely in the Gulf of Mexico, where most of the population centers are, it's not alarming, I don't want to say that, but it definitely gets your attention. And of course it is certainly high enough surrounding and leading into and out of the various islands, from the Lesser Antilles through the Greater Antilles and beyond. Looking at the satellite animation here, courtesy of Mr. Levi Cowan at tropicaltidbits.com there, we see a few interesting pieces of, again, these players on the field. All right, so this is 97E, there's 95E. Not much happening in the Atlantic Basin overall. We have this still stalled frontal boundary draped across a good deal of the western Atlantic. A lot of rainfall here, especially in the Big Bend area of Florida. I've heard from a few people down in the Michael blast zone, as I call it, that have been dealing with a lot of rainfall. That's hindering their daily lives because they still have wrecked homes and businesses to contend with. But some of these areas in the Big Bend proper have received almost 2 feet of rain. It's been sort of this quiet accumulation of rainfall. It's good in the sense that you're not going to dry out all that forest over there immediately. Bad that that's a lot of rain setting up if something were to come your way. And as you can see, there's still even more convection over the northern Gulf. We'll take a look at this. This is a cloud animation here. Okay, this is not radar. This isn't sending a radar beam out, bouncing off of droplets in the atmosphere and sending a return. That's what radar is, radio ranging and radio detecting and ranging, or something like that. This is satellite measuring the air temperature of the clouds, the surface temperatures of these clouds, and the brighter colors represent colder cloud tops, meaning that those clouds are higher in the atmosphere. And so we see cloud cover, and in this case it's in motion because this is an animation. In just a moment I'll show you what it looks like if you looked beneath the clouds at the energy that's there, the vorticity. What kind of energy are we looking at? Alright, so moving on, in the east there, in the eastern Atlantic, still barren out here, but the GFS, the Global Forecast System, indicating something trying to get going in this area over the next few days. That's kind of popped up and gotten a few people's attention, and we will take a look at that in more detail in just a moment. There's 97L, or whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's 97. No big deal with this, doesn't matter. Again, this energy over here over the northern Gulf, it's rainy, stormy, lots of shelf cloud pictures, probably a few water spouts from time to time, coastal interest, maritime interest out there, small boats, large boats, fishing boats, tour boats, whatever, pleasure boats, right? You got to pay mind to this too. It's not just hurricanes we're looking out for. During the warm season, when you have tropical convection, you get lightning, you get downbursts, gusty winds, and as such, it can be a problem. So just keep that in mind. Even though this is not developing into a tropical system, so to speak, a named storm, it's still a lot of energy sitting out over near where a lot of people go boating. Some energy with a tropical wave trying to work its way up into the Gulf. The models have been kind of off and on the last few days that maybe something tries to develop in the Gulf of Mexico somewhere. So we'll watch, obviously, as if we wouldn't be watching, right? All right, so that's what the cloud animations look like. What about underneath? All right, so this gives us more clues. There's your energy associated with 95E. There's more energy over here, kind of off the chart, split off, half on, half off. With 97E, there's 97L, and that's pretty robust looking there. You got a you got to give it its props. It's kind of oval shaped, but it's fairly concentrated. A little bit of energy. Again, it's linear though, stretched out across the southeast there, coming out of the Gulf, east of the toe of Louisiana, up through the Big Bend area, and on into parts of the southeast. Luckily, because boy, it has been rainy down here. We just had college move-in day for UNC Wilmington a couple days ago, and it just rained and rained and rained. It was on Saturday, I believe, and then I had college orientation with my daughter. She starts college there this coming week at UNC Wilmington, and everybody was remarking about how miserable it was moving in. In fact, they weren't allowed to do much move-in because there was lightning going on. None of the helpers could come. It was a miserable time, put it that way. That has all moved out, luckily. So if you're vacationing down along the coast here in southeast North Carolina, most of the concentrated showers and storms that we had the last few days are gone. And that's all part of this draped frontal boundary that's left over, and a piece of it has broken off. And there you go. That's the energy that gave us all the rain over here the last few days, and it's headed out to sea. Now, down in the deep tropics, other pieces of energy lurking in the otherwise barren landscape of the deep tropics, the main development region that you hear so much about. There is energy down here. It's kind of squashed at the moment, but the GFS is trying to make something of it. So let's take a look at the Atlantic side real quick, and then we're going to look at the Pacific, because there are three areas that I'm going to be watching pretty intently. Is that a word, intently, or is it intensely? Doesn't matter. I'll be paying close attention. I like to get my words right, and when you do this sort of live, if you will, recording it live, unless you have a script or a teleprompter, you can sometimes foobar the words. Anyhow, let's take a look. Again, this is from Tropical Tidbits, and I'm going to just show you the, I could do the slider or whatever. We're going to go through the different frames here, and what we're looking at is an animation generally of this. Okay, this is the vorticity at 850 millibars in the atmosphere. That's how high you have to go at a standard atmosphere to reach 850 millibars of pressure. Remember, the higher up in the atmosphere you go, the lower the pressure is. This is also 850 millibars in the computer model. It's a simulation of the atmosphere. And we're looking at 850 millibars up. And we are looking in this area right through here. So let me use blue just to be a little bit less obtrusive. So keep your eye on this area right through here as I go through these frames. All right? So this is, I think Levi does this every 6 hours. So let's just go through. So this will be 24 hours out from the initialization, which was this morning. Now we're at Tuesday morning. So there's Tuesday morning. And just right off the bat, you notice just a little bit of curvature to these wind barbs in here. There's just a little bit of energy in there. And that's really important. So let me draw my box back and keep your eye on that box. All right, so that's 24 hours. Let's go out to 48. Whoops. So at 48 hours, not much there, and maybe I'm too far to the west. That energy moves on, and it comes alive just a little bit as it approaches the islands. But look farther to the east over here. Now, some more energy that's coming off Africa, and if we can look back at the satellite imagery, looks like that's around here right now. That's what we really need to watch, okay? So we go back to the GFS here, and this little piece starts to move into and towards the islands. Now watch what happens with this area through here. Again, we're at 48 hours out. Let's go to 72, and we'll take the telestration away, maybe. And now this is just 3 days out. It starts to get together, a little bit more energy coming off of Africa. Nice high pressure area is outlined by these height lines in the atmosphere. So, something's trying to get going. Keep going out to 96 hours. You see it close off, more organized, fairly small, and important, folks, it's at a low latitude in here. It's just north of 10, so probably 12 degrees north latitude, something like that. That's 4 days away. So this would be Friday morning. 5 days out, it's definitely trying to make a name for itself, maybe literally and figuratively there. At 6 days, it's approaching Barbados, which is right there, from the south and east, whatever this is. Pretty decent looking signature in the vorticity field. There are a lot of ways to analyze tropical cyclones. Let me make that very clear. This is how I do it. This isn't the only way. This isn't necessarily how, and I know it's not the only way that the forecasters at the National Hurricane Center do it. I like to look at the structure of the systems in the computer models. The way I look at it, at 5,000 feet up, the 850 millibar level of the atmosphere, that's kind of like the skeleton of the system. And if that's not intact and healthy in the modeling, then the rest of it can't be from there on up. You understand? It's not quite the surface, but you know you have to have a surface low pressure area at the surface to about 18 to 20,000 feet up. Pretty decent low to mid-level surface circulation. Beyond that, if the cyclonic circulation goes all the way up to the stratosphere, then you have a very intense hurricane, and you sometimes see those mentioned, those cyclonic circulations going all the way up to the 200 millibar level in the discussion of a very intense hurricane. Rita, Katrina, Michael, others. But when they first get started, this guy likes to look and see, do we have a concentration of energy around in a circle, in a round fashion, around the area of low pressure. That's what I like to look for. Then we can go look at other things like, okay, what does it look like another layer up, 500 millibars or 200 millibars, the outflow level, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of that I'll do offline because, my goodness, that could become very boring if we sit here and analyze the whole thing, all the layers all the time. So just a little explanation as to exactly what we're looking at here. So this tells me that we have a system there at about day 6, and look, it's interesting, you get a little troughing coming off, little energy coming off the coast of North America, and this little mid-level ridge sitting down here, squashing this farther to the south. So you folks here in the windwards, maybe you'll have something you need to keep an eye on, according to the GFS. If we go out one more time period here to a week, and that's as far as we need to look at this point, it goes through the islands there, and it begins to lose its identity just a little bit as more pieces of energy do start to try to come off here. And what time is it? Well, it's August 26th on the map, a week from today. So still August, and the potential of a few systems starting to show up. Okay, so I guess maybe we will have a hurricane season. A lot of talk about how dead it's been. Boom, all of a sudden the GFS starting to come to life, playing catch-up, if you will. So we will watch this. You guys down in the islands, we'll just go back to the satellite animation real quick. Nothing to panic about just yet, but you know as well as I do, you have to be vigilant this time of year. Even a vigorous tropical wave coming your way could dump a lot of rainfall and cause flooding concerns. Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, etc. All those islands down in the Caribbean, you're the front line, okay? So we got you. We're watching for you, and we'll see what happens. I'll be on top of this, obviously, every day, all right? So now let's shift gears to the areas. This is one low pressure area here. There's another one here in the eastern Pacific. Same thing, 850 millibars in the atmosphere, 5,000 feet up, the GFS from this morning's run. Put this into animation mode, so to speak, step by step. You see how that works? We'll go back here. See how that, they curl up, man. You see that energy bundling together. What a remarkable thing that we can simulate this in the atmosphere in a computer model. This energy curls up, and boom, you get a tropical cyclone. That's 95. This is 97E over here, and it does the same thing. Curls up, heads west. Little bit of a weakness over here. You see how this height line over here, you got this high pressure area. You don't have that much to the north of what would be this eventual tropical cyclone right here, and as such, it is able to gain more latitude. We're later in the season now. It says August 23rd. This is valid Friday afternoon, this coming Friday. And you can see what happens. It gets pretty close to and impacts eventually the Baja, and it weakens tremendously. Of course it does from a wind and pressure perspective, but what's left over? Rain. And what is all this? Areas that are usually arid, all right, for the most part. The Baja and northwest Mexico up into Sonora, and maybe we'll have to watch how this evolves, maybe parts of the southwest United States. All right, so I've definitely got my eye on that for obvious reasons. Now, 97E, which is just off the map over here, starts to come into frame. Here are the Hawaiian Islands. In this large area, the subtropical ridge sitting out here, big area of high pressure. Same thing, 850 millibars, 12Z GFS. Told you it was going to be busy today, folks. Put this into motion, 48 hours out, you start to see it come into focus. All right, we're at day 5, a bona fide, small, aerial coverage-wise, but probably fairly intense tropical cyclone. You know, that's the generic term for depression, storm, or hurricane. And there's the big island of Hawaii right there. Keep going with this. That's day 5. There's day 6. And there's day 7. At this point, it's really intense in the model. And we need to watch this closely. Okay, so it'll either come along and merrily go about its way, no problem. Maybe it comes a little bit more to the north. We'll just have to wait and see. The bottom line, all of a sudden, ladies and gentlemen, the tropics have become more of an interest to you and me. If you live in Hawaii, if you live along the Baja, anywhere Pacific Mexico, the waves that could come out, folks down in the islands, anybody that lives in the United States, because things are starting to wake up right at the climatological beginning of the big ramp up that we expect this time of year. So you can look at the modeling and what do the ensembles say? What does this say? What does that say? And again, just go look out the window sometimes. And in this case, the shorter term models represent the window in this metaphor. And even just looking at the satellite picture and the vorticity that's going on out there, what do we have currently? And in some cases, looking at computer models 3 to 5 days out, the short to medium range weather forecast, that's okay for calling it currently, instead of what's it going to be like 2 to 3 weeks from now. Are you kidding me? The weather is extremely changeable, and what's happening now is not what's going to be happening 2 to 3 weeks from now. I think we should all know that by now. All right? So a lot to keep our eyes on for sure. I will be posting about it more and more on Patreon. I'm going to talk about this just for a moment before I sign off. The Patreon, and in fact I'm getting ready to do a brand new pitch video for Patreon outlining all the stuff that we're going to be doing with it. Patreon very much mimics social media in my world. I like it. I like the publishing capabilities of it. I can post stuff in my own little micro universe for our patrons. Some of it can be exclusive if I make the post for patrons only, but I can also make those posts public, which is very nice. So I encourage you to sign up on Patreon. It is a great way to do 2 things. Support somebody that you know and trust, and I mean 20 years of doing this. If I haven't earned your trust by now, you might as well stop following. And we have a very good track record, my team and I. That's the number one reason you want to, hey, look, I want to help you out here. Because without the funding, I can't do this. And the second reason is because it then gives you an in, even for $1 a month pledge. And I've got knocking on the door of 19,000 YouTube subscribers, knocking on the door of 30,000 Twitter followers. If we just had a couple of thousand total beyond combined from those groups there, we're talking about almost 40,000, 45,000 total followers. Some of them are the same, etc. You understand how that works. It's the old saying: if just a certain percentage pledged between $1 and $5, I would never have to worry about funding ever again. We could do whatever we want. Probably even start to hire some people. Wouldn't that be great? And so it's not like, oh man, we need hundreds of dollars a year. Sure, that's great, but I would rather have a couple thousand people at $1 to $5 a month than just a few hundred people where I have to limit everything. Does that make sense? And we are getting there. So Patreon, it's right down there at the bottom. You see it, patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. I'll put the link to that in the description. I'm going to be using it more and more and more because I love the capabilities of it. The push notifications that you get, most of you, the email notifications when I do a post. It very much mimics a combination of Twitter, YouTube, and WordPress all in one setting that I can communicate to you through in return for your support, your monetary support that helps me to do this and fund what we're doing. I just can't believe it, and it's growing fantastically, and we're making some serious progress with it, which I'll talk about more when I do this pitch video coming up soon. All right, enough about that. I hate talking about money, but money is how I pay myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do this, and I couldn't serve you. All right. Hey, look, thanks for sticking around for this video. I appreciate it as always. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. That's how this all started, the HurricaneTrack brand. It's just interesting how it has grown over the years with so many different ways to get the word out. And that being said, whatever device you happen to be watching this from today, I appreciate it. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.